Thank you. Hey, everyone. Good morning. Wow. I can't tell you, how exciting it is to be here back on stage with all of you versus seeing you all on little screens on, little squares on my computer screen. Also, never spoken in a theater before, so this is fun. Never had my slides this big. So I'm here today to talk about working with cross-functional teams and helping them succeed. I've got a few hard-learned lessons to share about how we as product marketers can be the glue that holds these groups together. But first, I want to level set. I'm here today running on caffeine and adrenaline. My company, NVIDIA, has our big kind of major biannual conference coming up in 2 weeks called GTC. And I'm involved with some of our big announcements that are happening and launches that are part of our keynote. So no pressure, right? But why am I here instead of being glued to my computer or frantically running around with last-minute things? Aside from being a workaholic, overachieving perfectionist with imposter syndrome, I can be here because I've got an absolutely amazing cross-functional team. Our group of product, engineering, sales, marketing, creative, campaign, events, and other teams have really come together to pull something amazing off. Now, we're really at the point where we're working on final details, and I really couldn't be more proud of how it's all coming together. That said, I'm still here multitasking. So if you see me in a corner on my computer, just know that I really want to be here, but I also want to make sure that I'm there for my team when they need me, and that we're seeing everything through to the finish line. But I can be here today because I know that my team has my back. I know that we are aligned on our objectives. I know that we all share and understand the same goals and needs of the group. And I can trust them, and we can trust each other to make it happen. So how do we get there? I want to do a quick thought exercise with all of you. And building from some of the sessions earlier this morning, I think I know where this will go. Think of a time when you've been in a room with a group of people that didn't really get along. Right? You've got a meeting, and you are all working on the same project or building a strategy together. But there's a bit of tension, right? Maybe there's some heated discussions. Maybe there's some strong debates. Maybe there's some outright disagreements. Now, how many of you are thinking of a meeting with people outside of your immediate org, right? People that aren't product marketers or people that are on your team? Feel free to raise your hands, right? And were the people that were in attendance, from other teams like product or sales, how many different groups were represented? Often we as product marketers are in these, whether they're meetings or just cross-functional teams in general, and they're very crucial for the work that we do. It's not about you going off in a corner and building a marketing strategy or developing messaging and positioning. You are reliant on your sales teams, your product teams, and others for that input. And we are crucial to, these cross-functional teams are crucial to the work that we as product marketers do. So what do we do about it? How can we help our cross-functional team succeed? How can we make those meetings less awkward and get everyone to get along, maybe even be more successful as a group and as a team than we've been in before? The secret, I argue, is you. All of us as product marketers, we are in a unique position where we can build connections and help bridge the gaps between these disparate teams of technical and non-technical teams, or teams with different objectives and goals. Often these teams don't even speak the same language. If you've ever worked in a tech company especially, which I'm sure many of us, or if not most of us are, you can understand the difference between the engineering jargon and the sales jargon and trying to bridge those gaps. It can be challenging. Not to mention the goals and KPIs of different teams as well. So I've learned pretty much everything I'm sharing today the hard way. So hopefully this helps somebody out there. My path to becoming a product marketer really wasn't a straight one. I've kind of done a little bit of everything. I studied journalism and design in school. I was convinced I was going to travel the world and be an award-winning journalist. I quickly took a summer job that turned into a full-time career out of college, doing events, actually working in the hospitality industry in Napa, and loved the work. I loved the creativity. I loved the storytelling. I loved the working with people, but I just didn't feel like it was the right fit. So I took a jump back to school to do a master's and decided to do something completely different. I wanted to learn more about people and how we interact, and I decided to pursue anthropology. At this point, I was convinced I was going to come back and be a researcher, but I quickly realized that while I love research and understanding data and gathering insights, I really wanted to get more hands-on with the actual building and development of the products and solutions. There we go. So I jumped into the tech world and a number of different roles in marketing, working mostly in the startup world to begin with, and really kind of fell into place in product marketing. It was the right balance in my mind between working with people, like customers, and working with the solutions, the product development itself, and being able to bring in those insights and do some of that research that I loved as well. I found a home at Meta and really was able to grow and develop as a product marketer. I went from the startup world where I was the only product marketing person to a global company that had a ton of resources and a ton of teams across the world. That was amazing, but I wanted to get back into the startup world. I decided to, just make some changes. So I then ended up jumping right before the pandemic back into early stage startup work, and that led to a lot of uncertainty during the last few years. Jumped around a bit, had a number of different opportunities at various different sizes of companies, nonprofit included, and finally found a home at NVIDIA. And this has really been a great place for me to land because I tell all of this as context. I've held a number of different roles, worked with a number of different people, types of teams and objectives and OKRs, and ultimately I feel I'm able now to bring that together with my cross-functional teams here at NVIDIA to really drive some amazing work and also help drive some amazing products forward. We'll see where that takes me. So in preparing for this talk, thinking about cross-functional teams and teamwork and what that means as a product marketer, I rediscovered Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. How many of you have read it or at least are familiar with it, right? It's pretty well-known, pretty common out there. But I was reminded of one particular aspect, which is the 3 types of people that he describes: connectors, mavens, and salespeople. And the way he described connectors really stood out. I wouldn't call myself the most extroverted person, I say standing up here on a stage, but I absolutely love bringing people together. So even though I might not be the life of the party or the one that's typically up here, I love when I can connect other people where maybe they have something in common or maybe they could help each other out. And that's actually led me in my career to mentorship and volunteering and other types of opportunities. And it was also an aha moment for me because I realized something else. This definition of a connector also applies to product marketing. We can very easily change out connectors here to product marketers. Now, I'll take a stop for a second because product marketing is, I would argue, a loaded term. Even earlier today, and I'm sure in conversations, we've talked about how a lot of times people don't necessarily understand what product marketing is or have different definitions of this role. But I think one key thing that I really love that we alluded to a few minutes ago is this definition by the Product Marketing Alliance. So even if your role is more outbound or you're more focused on content or sales enablement and than maybe just the overarching messaging and positioning, regardless, this structure really makes sense. We are essentially the driving force behind getting products to market and keeping them there, right? So in representing the customer or developing our product messaging or enabling sales teams or even helping drive product adoption, like we are working together with all these other teams. We are dependent on them, and we really sit in the middle as well. And we ultimately do bring them all together. Oftentimes, if it wasn't for product marketing, product and sales are pretty, set pretty far apart. But we in the product marketing world are really focused on understanding the customer, understanding the sales needs, bringing that back in, understanding the product development, understanding roadmap, and bringing that back in and kind of marrying those two to develop strategy, to develop realistic sales enablement material, and make sure that the sales team is actually aligned with what the product can really do versus selling the world. So how do we do this effectively, right? What skills, or I'd like to say superpowers for the sake of this talk, do we need to hone in order to become connectors within our cross-functional teams? I'm going to share 3 that I've really found to have helped me. And some of these might be obvious, but I think still they are extremely helpful and useful for us to keep in mind. These are skills that we often use when we market externally, but they're also just as valuable when we're working with our internal cross-functional teams. Product marketers are translators. We help understand our audiences. We develop personas and segmentation on a daily basis. But think about how we can use that internally. How many of you have been in a room with an engineering or technical person of some sort, as well as our sales team, and you're understanding what both sides are saying, but they don't necessarily understand each other. I can't tell you how many times I've had to really, really hone in and explain what CTA is, for instance, and really what we want to be able to build in a call to action to deliver or achieve the results, get the objectives, drive the adoption that we're looking for. So as a translator, the first thing I think is most important, we want to actively listen and understand what our team is really saying. Translator, I would argue not interpreter, because it's not really our job at this stage with these cross-functional teams to lead or to change the conversation, at least not when we're really working to bring everyone together. So understanding, listening, and hearing all sides. Context is also crucial. Know where they're coming from. I've sat in a number of heated rooms where, especially launch war rooms, where there's arguments and discussions, and sales is saying one thing and product teams are saying another, that they can't deliver, or we're not, the timing doesn't work. Where are they coming from? What's the context? Sales has pressure to drive revenue and close sales. Product has pressure to deliver a quality product. Understanding where they're coming from, understanding why, especially if there's tension, where that is and why that is especially helpful to bring a team together. Find a common language. Again, I come back to the jargon that all of us have. We at NVIDIA have an entire kind of internal glossary for all the different acronyms that we use on a regular basis. And different teams have different acronyms that they use, right? Your sales teams might have different terminology than a product team might have as well. One example is AR, right? That is augmented reality to a lot of our product teams, but it means something entirely different to sales and comms. But ultimately, you will find a common language, even if it's just plain English. But because you are working at the same company, you can come back to overarching goals and visions and objectives of the company as well. We product marketers are matchmakers. We bring people together on a regular basis, and doing so with our cross-functional teams is key as well. I think it's pretty safe to assume that all of you here are interested and open to networking, because that's one of the key reasons that we come to events like this. But within your own companies, think about opportunities to gather and collect and network with people. I can't tell you how amazing it's been to get back to the office, even if just for a few days a week or every other week, which is kind of where we are right now, because you're able to organically connect with people. You can do that as well online or an email or Slack if you use those channels. And it's really helpful to, as you are meeting people externally, yes, but also internally, to think about how you can connect them with others as well. One thing that I like to do, and I didn't realize it was a superpower until I really started thinking about this presentation and what I wanted to talk about with team building and cross-functional teams. One thing I like to do is have one-on-ones with new employees. They might not be product marketers on my direct team. Oftentimes they are adjacent. Maybe they're working on an enterprise team or industry, or maybe they are more on the product side. I like to have one-on-ones, and I like to leave that one-on-one with some recommendations for them. Hey, you should talk to so-and-so. They also have a passion for gaming, or they also come from the film industry. Definitely worth reaching out and connecting. Small things like that help build stronger networks across your cross-functional teams, and it also helps build your position as that hub to bring people together. And finally, you take that matchmaking, take that collaboration energy, and build it into opportunities. Think collaboratively about what you could accomplish as a larger team or a larger group. Maybe it's something as simple as a webinar that is, my focus is developers, but maybe I'm able to collaborate now with our media and entertainment team to do something even greater than just a focused developer webinar. Maybe now we're able to bring in some industry representatives and some partners to do something really cool that applies and is relevant to a larger audience, and also gives me more resources to make it happen. Product marketers are mediators. We are, again, that position of being in the middle sometimes comes with some challenges, and definitely responsibility. Often, if we're able to see all the sides, if we're able to understand all the different languages being spoken at the table, we're in a position to help everyone find common ground. Again, coming back to that tense meeting room where everyone might not be on the same page, how can you help bring everyone together? So this one took me a while to learn because coming into some of these discussions, I was kind of in a point of defense as well. I had my objectives. I wanted to make sure that was heard. And if I wasn't getting that feedback, it was frustrating. And oftentimes it felt like a personal attack or an attack on my team and the work that we were doing. A lot of times marketing sometimes is a thankless job where everyone, especially product marketing, no one's exactly happy with us. But assume the best intentions. Sales has their objectives. They have their numbers, their quotas to reach. Product wants to make sure that what they put out there isn't super buggy and it works and it makes customers happy. Everyone is coming to the table with their own reasons and objectives, and it's really valuable to assume that they mean the best for the company, for the team, and for your goals. Center around shared goals. This feels pretty obvious, especially as we all work on our strategies and build goals and OKRs and objectives, but it's really valuable as a team to center around something specific. If you are a cross-functional team that's working on a specific product launch, what is the shared goals that you have around that launch? Are you driving a new vertical? Are you driving specific amounts, numbers of adoption, or are you also looking at just getting awareness out there? Maybe your product team is wanting to understand how users and customers will actually work with the product, and their goal is really just to understand and learn how will people use it, how do people feel about it. Things like that can come into play as you build goals together. And of course, turn those goals into something tangible. Align on objectives and KPIs. This can be, I've found, can be hard, because if you've seen these strategies, marketing has their objectives, product has theirs, and campaign even has their own KPIs that they're measuring against. But what are some common objectives that drive back to those goals? Oftentimes, this is as simple as, at least for us and for a lot of my team, we look at awareness together. We want to understand how is our product being received and what volume of impressions, engagement, et cetera, are we getting? What is our share of voice? We also want to understand and drive adoption, right? Objective, of course, for us, especially on the developer side, is to drive adoption and usage of our SDKs and our software solutions. So that is an important metric to everybody that's involved in a cross-functional team. And finally, a metric that kind of comes more from our sales and partnership side is partners, lighthouse accounts, and actual integration of our technologies in consumer-facing or public-facing solutions. That is one that's also really valuable for me as a product marketer to understand, build use cases from, et cetera. And it's also important for our product team to understand so that they can really see what it is, what our solutions look like in the field. So to sum that all up, I'm sharing 3 superpowers for product marketers. These shouldn't be net new skills that we all have. These should be things that we work with on a regular basis when we think about our external audiences and our day-to-day job in marketing. But they're also extremely valuable to bring back to our cross-functional teams. Translators, matchmakers, and mediators. I want to leave you with a final quote. This one really speaks to me because I've definitely learned this the hard way. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. My company has a philosophy of team of 4, which is essentially your core cross-functional team. Who are the people that you can't do your work without? And who are this is beyond the decision makers and the stakeholders and reviewers and approvers. This is really your core team that you work alongside for everything that you do, whether it's everything you do for your job overall or for a specific project. So think about your team of 4, your core cross-functional team, and think about how you are that bridge that can bring them all together. And leverage your superpowers, because you all, as product marketers, already have these ingrained. Thank you, guys.
All right, Stephanie, thanks so much. For those of you who weren't here when I was up there, I'm the host today's chairperson. My name's Jose. We don't have Slido in this room because Wi-Fi is very hard in a movie theater. But we do have a microphone, and we will take questions now for Stephanie. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and Josie or someone from the team, the production team here, will find you. Any questions? We have a question up there in the middle.
Hi, thank you so much for a great talk. I'm sort of dealing with an opposite problem where we are super collaborators and we've gotten so good at our job that we have fell into this very slippery slope of being apparently the only people who can drive cross-platform or cross-functional collaboration at the company, sometimes to the point where we don't have enough time to do actually our jobs and we spend more time on driving collaboration. Have you dealt with that, and if so, how?
That's an interesting one. So the downside or the flip side of collaboration, it can be too much collaboration. Or more specifically, like you said, there is still work to be done as a product marketer separate from your cross-functional teams. I think, short answer, yes. Especially right now as we're getting ready for this big event, 105% of my schedule on a daily basis is meetings with different team, stakeholders, collaborative meetings, right? So it definitely can be challenging. I think the biggest thing I would argue, and I'd be curious to hear others, but the biggest thing I would argue is that all your work, even as an individual product marketer, still comes back to your organization as a whole. That pie chart that we saw of the hub and spoke of where product marketing sits. So all of your work is benefits the cross-functional team, but where to draw that line in terms of collaboration and working together on something versus kind of you taking charge and leading, I do think it depends on the specific team and the specific kind of product marketer. But ultimately, if it comes down to collaboration is getting in the way from you doing your work versus collaboration is designed by committee and you're kind of not getting to an end result, I think the first one, if it's getting in the way of doing your work, carving out the time or making sure that you're clear on this is the time or the projects that I need to work on myself and I can get back to the team. And then on the flip side, if it's more designed by committee and you're not getting anywhere because you're so collaborative, identify the leader, right? Coming back to that team of 4, it's your team of 4. It's the people that you are needing to do your job and to work with, but establish yourself, at least for the product marketing aspects, right? Establish yourself as the leader and the decision maker for those projects and move it forward, move the team forward from there. Sometimes that means making a call, cutting off or setting deadlines. Sometimes that might be pushback, and that if there's a tension there that could identify maybe this is something more product-driven or sales-driven versus product marketing. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I think roles and responsibilities are super key there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so any other questions? We have time for one more. Okay, here we go.
So in building that core team of 4, there's the usual players, right? You've got your product manager, you've got maybe an AE or an SE, right? But there's a whole host of other people, right? There's CSMs,
Definitely.
There's SDRs, there's BDRs. Have you bumped into any one group that you decided to include them in your core of 4 or 5, 6, whatever it was, that you could share that say, this is one most people don't think of, but was really beneficial in incorporating?
Yeah, no, that's great. I always include someone from product, but that doesn't necessarily mean the product manager, someone technical from product who can get me the behind the scenes. For me, a lot of times that is the product manager, but I always look for someone who can help me peel back the layer to understand what our product, what our solution is, and give me the real talk. So that's one. And then the other is definitely someone on the BD side, or for us, it's a developer relations or partner relations, someone that can help me represent and understand our audience at scale, because oftentimes I'm not sitting in every single customer meeting, but I do want to make sure that that voice is heard, and that voice is heard by that technical team that is, telling me for real where exactly our product is and where all the spider webs are.
Well, let's give another round of applause to Stephanie.
Thank
Thank
you
you very
all.
much, Stephanie.